Welcome, everyone, to Transform Your Relationships Live. I'm Laura Rubenstein here with the amazing and fabulous Dr. Roberta Shaler. Hi, Roberta.
Hello, amazing and fabulous Laura Rubenstein.
Always wonderful to be here for our Transform Your Relationship show. And today is a great day with a very interesting topic. Shall we talk about it? True love versus toxic love.
Yes, it's so important because, particularly, women and men are different in this regard, and women so want to believe it's true love. And it's very, very difficult to dissuade them from the idea that they can help, they can support, they can fix, they can lead, they can love someone enough that they'll relax and be nice. And they won't.
The actions, as you always say, speak louder than the words. Believe,
ABB.
always believe the behaviors,
That's
the
right.
mantra here. And, and I think people don't even recognize that they want to focus in on the love and the goodness in the person that they're with, and having the feeling of love themselves, that some things can be overlooked and it could down the road be very hurtful.
Well, yes, and there's another piece to that equation, which is more likely, which is they keep taking on to themselves the fact that the other person is not pleasant and maybe downright damaging. They keep saying, if I were better, if I were more patient, if I stopped nagging, if I gave them more love, if I had lower expectations, if I didn't demand. And they take it all on themselves. And that's one of the places where the toxicity is huge, is because this person is telling me I'm awful and I start believing their press. And they have a vested interest in telling me that so that they can have control over me. And so that whole equation has to be shifted.
And it's a whole pattern that gets put into place. You do something, they point out how it's somehow crazy, you're the crazy one, you blame yourself, you try to change, they blame you, and it's like this never ending rinse and repeat that you can't get out of, and you're desperately trying to please and feel love, and it becomes very like toxic soup, and you don't even know you're in it sometimes, or you do, and you're thinking it's all your fault. Ah, but then what's true love?
Well, true love is when you feel that connection, and it's not just a thought that you can overcome things. You know that you can communicate with the person. There is no false closeness. The closeness is emotional safety, and that you can talk to them and they have your best interests. I talk about this several times on our show here, but I just recently did a podcast on Save Your Sanity podcast about the three must-haves to be in an adult healthy relationship. And if you don't have equality, reciprocity, and mutuality, you've got nothing. And those are three things you are absolutely not going to have in a toxic relationship, but in a true love situation, you will have those and you will see them clearly and you will feel them and you will relax into them and you will then be able to create emotional intimacy. In a toxic relationship, you cannot create emotional intimacy. It's false. They People who are toxic, the hijackals that I talk about, those people, they will love bomb you. They will try to get you into a place where you will speak of your vulnerabilities, and then they will do what I call weaponize your vulnerabilities. They will take that in, they'll pretend they're listening, they'll pretend they care, and then when they want to get to you, often in public, they will just spill those vulnerabilities and blame you for them and shame you for them. And that's terribly toxic.
It really is, when you don't feel that safety.
No.
And let's break it down because you said there are these three things: equality, mutuality, and reciprocity. I don't think we've ever like really gone in depth, or not in a while, into that. And some of these words are big words, and equality, you're both equal. So how does that show up in true love versus toxic love?
Well, in true love, the person that you're with is going to be interested in your needs and wants and thoughts and preferences and feelings. In a toxic relationship, they're not. They're looking for whatever it is they need, whatever they want. They dismiss and discount your feelings. They're not interested. It's all about them. So equality cannot exist. It is impossible because with a toxic person, their only need is to dominate and control, manipulate. And so they don't have that to give. Equality is not possible because they need to be superior.
Yeah, and in true love, there's this equality where the other person is conceding or even inquiring about what is it that you want. And there's both ways. You're both doing that for each other. It's not a one-way street. There's the how can I how can I be the best for you? How can you be the best for me? How can I provide you something, can we choose the movie you want this time versus the restaurant versus the movie and the restaurant or the meal this time. It comes down to even those little decisions you can see it in, right?
You can. And in the bigger picture, it's the fact that the person is actually genuinely, authentically interested in you. They're not looking for an angle. They're absolutely there with you, and they want to deepen and expand the relationship into deeper and deeper levels of emotional intimacy. In
Mm.
a toxic relationship, it's all about control. So, if I get you to a place where you will tell me what scares you, or what it is you really want, then I can then later withhold what it is you really want, or tell the world about what you consider to be your weaknesses. And they're very blatantly different. You will never feel safe in a toxic relationship, ever, ever, ever. And that should be your first, really big red flag. If you're not feeling safe,
Yeah,
notice.
yeah, yeah, and honor that feeling of not feeling safe. Don't feel bad. It's okay. You deserve to feel safe in a relationship. That's the relationship you want, and you can have it, but not with someone who's you're developed this toxic relationship with. And most likely, some people were like, "Well, we can go to counseling and we can fix that," right?
Well, and people do, and I encourage it. And here's why. Certainly I work with people all over the world, and one person in a relationship will contact me and they'll say, I think I'm with a toxic person, and I'll chat with them about it. And maybe they are, but they still don't feel validated until they bring that toxic person in and the three of us talk. And I get the read and the bead on the other person. And then I can say, is it the person? Is it the relationship? Is it the way you communicate? Is there possibility here for this to grow into something good? And so often that happens. But big caveat, Laura, hijackals go to counseling in order to win, to manipulate the therapist into believing them, charming the therapist into believing them that, oh, what I have to put up with. And, bless her heart, she tries, but, she's a mess. And so frequently, and I'm sorry to say this about my profession, but people don't see this, mental health professionals don't see this frequently, and so they miss it. There's a thing, I think I've mentioned this before on our show. There's a thing that they tell medical doctors. When you hear hooves, think horses, not zebras. And meaning that it's probably the most common thing that you're thinking of. So go with that first. And if it persists, then you go looking for zebras. Well, the same thing applies in the therapy world. Hearing hooves is, well, you two don't communicate very well. Things that you say are incendiary. Do you notice that? Let's see if we can clean up your communication. But that will not help in the same way in a toxic relationship. The communication that needs to be cleaned up is the non hijackal needs to be empowered to say, no, this is not okay with me. And they need to be led to that place, not like, let's play nicely together, because the hijackal is not going to play nicely together. The whole being of the hijackal is to have power over. So
But
how
I
could they
do
possibly
play
be?
nicely, and I'd never, like,
Yeah, I
right?
know. How can you possibly say that I don't love you? Oh, let me count the ways.
And I just want to give a shout out to those of you who are watching here today, and thank you for the love and uh, the the hearts here. We are all about expanding love and having people thrive in relationships. So the toxic love, comes. I feel like it comes out of a neediness to feel this push pull or something. When are you seeing the pattern being most prevalent?
Well, toxic love is an oxymoron. There is no such thing as love that is toxic. I mean, that's just clever us for coming up with true love and toxic love. That's not love. That's power over. And it's sad. And don't put on your compassion hat and go, oh, maybe I can help them. No, you can't. Not your circus, not your monkeys. You didn't break it. You can't fix it, you know. And I if you can, I'm happy to help you, and I will tell you whether you can or can't by seeing you. But the fact is that too many people, particularly of the women variety, think that they can, because we're hardwired to nurture and nourish. We have babies, we take care of them. We also then think we can nurture and nourish other humans, which is a great quality. And we overextend ourselves in the direction of a place that is refusing to be nurtured or nourished.
Hmm.
They're taking advantage of you.
Oh, and
Oh,
but no matter how much you nurture and nourish, you're saying that it will not be received. In fact, it may even backfire
well, they're going to take advantage of that. Oh, look at this, what I can get him or her to do, you know.
because it'll
So,
never be enough.
no, I have these little diagrams here. Here's a healthy relationship, right?
Okay. And what does that mean?
Well, there's two people in it, and there it's well balanced, and there's flow, and it goes between. Here's a hijackal relationship.
Mm,
The whole idea is the hijackal is going to take up as much space as possible and flatten you against the wall.
mm. Wow.
That's not going to work.
So we talked about equality being, let's generously give to each other, right?
No, let actually more
Let-
than that,
yes.
fairly be in equal interest, equal availability, equal decision making.
And now, what does mutuality mean?
Well, mutuality means that I want for you what you want for yourself. I know who you are. I'll walk beside you. I'll have your back. I will walk behind you. I will walk ahead of you. I am there, and we are in a relationship that is healthily interdependent, and you're my person. You know how they used to say on Grey's Anatomy, she's my person? Well, you know for sure that that is your person, that you have a commitment and a desire, and you know for sure that you're going to walk through life together in an equitable, equal way.
And they're in your court.
Absolutely. I mean, mutual means we've got respect, we've got care, we've got all of these things that flow between us. And so it's mutual as opposed to reciprocal, which reciprocity is not a scorecard. It's not tit for tat. Reciprocity is that we know each other's abilities and things, and we're willing to fill in each other's spaces in that way. Like, maybe I don't know how to make the generator work, but I do know how to feed you when you finish making the generator work. you know, we kind of fill in like the healthy people can stand alone, no question. They may prefer not to be entirely alone, but healthy people can be. They're independent. And we don't want to get into a relationship that is mutually codependent. And
Mm,
we don't want to get into a relationship where one person is codependent because that's going to take you to hijackal land.
right.
We want to have two independent people who choose to intersect still can stand alone, choose to be here, go effortlessly between the two positions, and they're healthy.
And like the minute one requires someone the other to do something that makes them that is required for their happiness. If you do this, I would be happy. That's a slippery slope. That
Yeah,
is a telltale sign of you can't stand on your own. Like you have to rely on somebody to be happy. But I love the idea of what you're pointing to. And I remember when I was looking and in the dating world, I knew for myself, I said, when I get to the place where I feel like I could take it or leave it, be in that is be in a relationship, I knew I was ready for a relationship
right.
because then I was happy with myself and I could come to the relationship full, standing on my own feet without needing that other person. And I could be more objective in the evaluation because I really thought my, oh, I really recognized at one point my picker was off. You've heard that term before, right? It's
Yeah.
like we had the chemistry, but sometimes that chemistry was out of that neediness. And therefore I would find somebody who wanted to take advantage of that, right? Versus coming to it fully in my full joy and finding somebody who wants to just play with me in my joy and and they would honor and respect in that mutuality kind of way. So it was there is a process you can get to it with enough insight and counseling. For me, it was counseling for sure that really helped me. And also really evaluating, kind of looking at myself as a third party, like, what am I feeling? I'd ask myself, like, what am I feeling out of this date or this relationship? What's going on here? Really, like taking that deeper dive and asking some of the question: Is it equal, mutual, and reciprocal? And I remember
Yeah,
setting
absolutely.
some rules also, like, if they're not showing up on time when they said they are, it's the ABB. Always believe the behaviors, not give them that not that I was mean about it, but I didn't have to give them compassion to make excuses for them. I said, okay, well, they're not reliable. Is that acceptable to me? Right?
Well, what you're talking about is observing behavior and believing it. You don't have to make somebody wrong for being late. You just observe the fact they're late. Do I want that in my life? Is that okay? And if it's not okay, then you bring it up and say, one of the things I really value is punctuality. It makes me annoyed and anxious when things get late. Can we fix that? And if the person, is habitually late, because there are people who have a very casual relationship with time, then you can have a conversation like, how can we fix this? Shall I tell you, you plan on being there 15 minutes early and then I'll come 15 minutes later and it'll work. But you find out if you can work things through. But if you are just accepting poor behaviors without agreement or speaking about it or working it through, that's unhealthy. And that's certainly not going to move you in a direction that is going to endear you. You're always going to have resentment about the fact they're not on time.
Yes. And
You
that's
know,
not a good place to be in resentment because then you start picking at each other and that also is a negative spiral down. I just wanted to say thank you for Adele. Hi, I saw your comment in there. And if you have questions about mutuality versus equality versus reciprocity or toxic love versus true love, feel free to sprinkle them here. And I'll be on the lookout for that. And we love the love. So thanks for being here, Allison and Lindsay and Adela, and Sarah, Melanie, Chris, thanks so much for your love. So let's get to the last piece here. We talked about equality, mutuality, and then reciprocity. I think that's kind of obvious, but let's talk about what it looks like, the give and take in a relationship.
well, reciprocity means that we each have things to give, as you said, and that we can count on each other for that. Like, I don't have to feel like you're doing me a special favor if you will support me when I have my first speaking or engagement. You would automatically want to show up for that. And that includes mutuality, but reciprocity, like, yeah, that's important to me, and I don't have to wonder whether it would be important to you. It is important to you. And because it's me, it's us. And that's healthy. But what a hijackal wants you to do is to beg, and then they'll promise to come, and then they won't show up, and then they'll be passive aggressive, and they'll say something like, well, I have more important things to do than to show up just because you want me to. And you start hearing those things and you think, oh, well, who am I to want them to show up? They're very important, or they have to go to work or whatever. And then you don't notice that, but you need to notice that. That's that person saying this is not a reciprocal relationship. I am more important than you are, and get that straight. And that's the important spectrum of things to be looking at. If you're always being suggested that you are needy, or that you don't matter, or that who do you think you are, or any of that. Like, I was raised by two hijackals. What was one of the most frequently heard things from the parents, or the supposed adults in the house? They would say, and who do you think you are, young lady, to want that? Well, that's a person who says, you had better find a way to reconcile that you have worth. And at the moment, I don't think you do. And if somebody is talking to you in that way, good thing to notice, big red flag, and don't have those rose-colored glasses on. You whip those off because you want to see those red flags. If anybody treats you as though you're less than, notice. You are not less than. Sure, all of us can improve our behaviors. All of us can improve our communication. All of us can do a little bit better. But that doesn't mean we're bad or wrong or stupid or not worthwhile. We're
Not
evolving
enough.
humans. Here's an example. I was on Facebook this weekend, wasn't everybody? And I
No.
noticed this I noticed this person who is quite frequently on Facebook, and he made this remark, and I won't fill in the name of the person, but he said, "What do you think about this person? Would you take relationship help from this person? After all, he's been divorced."
Interesting. That's a really awful question. Like, how do you know? Is that gaslighting that person? And you froze. Okay. So my thing about reciprocity, and we'll wait for Roberta to come back on, is that it's equal. You're giving and you're taking, and you're not hurting each other in that way.
Don't like him, never.
Okay. And she was back for a second. But I have a feminine power card that goes through that, that talks about being perfectly imperfect and accepting each other's imperfection as perfect. And what if a good relationship was that? Is where you're honoring your own imperfections, and you're enough, and that they're enough. And that really helps a reciprocal relationship to be, when you know you're enough, and when the other person also believes that you're enough, and they are actually holding you in high esteem. If they're not holding you in high esteem, it's probably going to be hard to have a reciprocal relationship. And unfortunately, that is something you got to acknowledge. Is your relationship being hijacked by someone who doesn't want to see you in high esteem? And thank you, Adela, for the for that. So she's back. We were on the verge of this. You were saying, if somebody would you take advice from from
Yeah,
him?
yeah. So you made this post. This person had a divorce. Would you take relationship advice for them? And I entered it, and I said, let's see. I know this person. They got a divorce in 1984. They married the love of their life and stayed married to them until that person passed recently, and this person was devastated. Changed the whole course of the conversation. Now people are not piling on and saying things like, one person said, I knew him 20 years ago, and it's just not worth it. So I put in it, I said, let's all hope that everybody in this thread recognizes that they personally have changed since 1984. They've evolved. And
They've helped people maybe even.
could we go from that premise that every one of us has evolved and learned and improved and been enriched? And, there were a few stragglers who said, yeah, but, the books are all out there and I don't believe it. Said, any book, you are quite welcome to agree with or disagree with. But that does not make this suggestion that started this conversation one that has any validity. Because if you talk about a person in relationship who got a divorce in 1984, and we are now talking 36 years later, and we are
Hello.
suggesting they just sat there like, oh, I'm now a divorced person. I can't do anything. No, that's absurd.
Actually, the
So,
divorce was probably very healing, right? In a way,
well, the
especially for
divorce
someone.
was very necessary. I mean, how many people have what I call trainer marriages? They got married, they had no clue what they were doing, they had no clue who they were. They did what they thought they were supposed to do. They got married and maybe made their parents happy or whatever.
Yep.
And they didn't know that that this was not a good match, or they didn't have the skills they have now, or they didn't know who they were and how to define that and have a conversation with another person to find if it even was a viable match.
Right.
But just this idea that what scared me, Laura, was the people who were piling on with the hate. Like someone says one thing and then all of the people then feel they have permission to say, no, never liked him anyway. The book was,
Right.
you know, all of
It's the
that.
gaslighting, it's the witch hunting. It's weird that we're using social media in that way. And I love what Bernadette is saying here, that
Yes.
we change over time, and people are prone to holding you hostage to your past. And I'm not sure why we're not giving people more of a chance, and we're not being more, like we're in some relationships, in the toxic relationships, people are being too compassionate, and in everyday life, we don't offer that compassion.
Oh, well, it's a really good point, Bernadette, and nicely put. But what I said to the guy was, why did you ask this question? And he said, oh, I don't know. He said, maybe there was too much alcohol in my capers at lunch. And he was just trying to be provocative and get a
Right.
conversation going. And I said to him, being provocative is one thing, damaging someone else's reputation by being provocative is another.
Right.
And starting a conversation that allows all these people to talk about feelings from 30 years ago, in what way is that helpful?
Exactly. We have a question here from Adela, and she loves listening to us. Thank you. Balances you out. Great. So, what do I do 7 months into a relationship, and I'm feeling uh, I'm wanting more than just continues for the first few weeks of dating routine of 7 months down the line? Do you have an idea of what she's asking?
Yeah, she's saying, the way I think she's saying, and hi, Adela, I think she's saying, we're still jockeying for position in our relationship as we did in the first few weeks. It's not deepening, it's not growing, we're
Ah,
not shifting. There's no routine that's starting to say we're a thing. I think that that's what she's saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, Adela. But if there's somebody who doesn't want to make progress, have a conversation with them. Some people do not want a long term relationship. Some people do not want to enter the conversation for fear that you won't like it. If they said, I'm happy to have a loving, wonderful relationship, but I no longer have interest in moving in or wanting to have a marriage, is that okay with you? Could we move our relationship in that direction and see if there's some equality there, that if you're looking for a live in or get married and let's have children relationship, and the other person is saying, no, I just love a relationship where we live in our own houses and we go out on the weekends and we stay at each other's houses and we travel together. Maybe you just have different expectations of what you're ready for.
I remember
solve
when
it that way.
yeah, I was dating a guy and we really liked each other and it wasn't clear and it was several weeks down the line and I go, "So, dude, I won't use his name. What does you want? What do you want out of this?" And he goes, "I don't know." And I thought that was, fine. I mean, I accepted his answer and I said, "You know what? Let's be friends until you do know." Right? 'Cause,
Great.
um,
Yeah.
and then I had to ask myself, what do I want? And, I knew what I wanted. Did I want it with him? I wasn't sure either. So it was a perfect timing for him to say that. But, um, what do you, ask what do you want and then share what you want. And if it's not a match, you got to be willing to have the personal respect to say it's not a match. Like you'll be so much happier for it, even though it's a hard conversation to have, even though it means maybe changing the status of the relationship. But you'll be doing the right thing for yourself, and you're sending your whole nervous system the right message that I matter and having what I need matters, right? And
Yeah,
starts
respect
rewiring.
yourself.
Right,
Respect yourself by saying, I'm clear what direction I'd like to go in. I'd like to know what direction you want to go in, and then we'll figure out what to do.
right.
But sometimes, Adela, that comes from a place of wanting to please. Like, I'm looking for clues from him. I'm waiting for him to say or do something. But in actual fact, I'm the one who's not willing to say what Laura said. Hey, dude, what's going on here,
Come on.
right? Because
Here's
you're
what I
afraid he'll
want.
go away, or you'll not hear what you want to hear. But 7 months is a lot of life. If it were 7 weeks, I wouldn't be concerned, but 7 months is a lot of life. And if after 7 months you can't have deep conversations, then you know what I'm going to pull out, right? Woohoo! This is somebody who is not ready or not interested because he hasn't started that conversation either. So be the brave one, be the mature one, step up and have the conversation.
You got this. We got your back. And that's what I love about our show is that everyone, we come back here every other week and we're here for you. And Roberta, you're there for people every day on your website for relationshiphelp.com. And I'm there at transformtoday.com. So, if you have to step into, it's scary to step into your own, truth of what you want and take a stand for it. And I get that personally. And like Bernadette actually said, when you actually have experienced some of this going through it, somebody and talking to somebody who's gone through it or helped other people go through it, it can be very empowering and helpful. And Bernadette even says, like back to our last conversation, actually a person who's been divorced can give sound advice. They've been there. They've seen a few things. So, they may have some answers, especially if they made a whole career out of helping people have healthier relationships. So,
Well, if something blows up and you are an inquiring person and this is your field, psychology is your field, you dive in. You figure it out. You figure you out. You figure out what went wrong and what went on. And then you research and you learn and then you have more to offer. So this suggestion that this person got a divorce in 1984 and then just moved over to the side of the road, sat down and never did another thing is an absurdity. He's actually brilliant. He has so much to offer. I've done video with him. You've done video with him. I mean, we know this human being and he's a wonderful human being. And here's this person just kind of, as it turned out, being provocative. Like, let me just throw something out and see what you think. Well, don't do that. I told him, not fair. Not fair to do that.
all right. We have to wrap up, but we have one question, and I think it's a great topic for a whole show or part of a show. You let me know. Adela's saying, I'm going to do this. It's his birthday this weekend, and so after the birthday celebration. But is age gap a problem? He's 55, I'm 37.
Yeah, sure. Right there. Okay, here we go again. A 55-year-old person, man, particularly man, he may have gotten into a groove. He may be quite happy with his life. He may want companionship, but he doesn't want continuous companionship. These are great questions to ask. The age gap may or may not be a factor, but I would suggest it is because he's maybe been burned before. Maybe he has some fears and concerns. Maybe that'll come out in your conversation with him. Or maybe he just needs some help to define and have it be all right that he tells you the truth. I plan to not live with someone again. I plan to not get married again. I plan to not be in a relationship where there is any demands of living together. But if you want something different than that, I can't give it to you. This is where I am in my life, and you will honor that. Don't try, Adela. Do not try to talk him into a different relationship. Honor what he says to you, respect what he says to you, and make your own decisions.
And be brave to hear what he has to say and know what you want. And if it's not a match, honor that. It's
Yeah.
hard, I know. But I love what Bernadette says here: respect yourself and know what you want, or know what you want and respect yourself. you
Well,
know,
I was saying to someone the other day, a private client, I said, and she was new. We were having our 1 hour introductory conversation, and which people can do at beaclient.com. And I said to her after an hour, I said, I've got a guess that your online dating profile is written in order to say, I'm a wonderful person. You would really like me. Here's all the ways that I will accommodate you. And she looked at me. She said, How do you know? I said, Because that you're attracting men that you have big questions about. Go back and write your online profile that says, This is what I'm looking for. This is about me, and this is what I'm looking for. And if you're not that, have a nice day. Right? Be willing to send people on their way because they will just waste your time.
it's funny, when I was on the dating scene and online, it was the beginning of online dating, and I wrote my profile, I bet you're someone who loves a woman who da 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 da,
There you go.
and it was playful, who can be playful, knows what she wants, is, busy and successful, but will make time for this, and has a guy who loves to dance and this and that. So I did it in a playful way. So you don't have to be like, this is me and put up or shut up type of thing. It's
No,
like, no,
no.
it's like, this is who I am, and you're gonna love me for who I am. And if you don't, that's what I do.
Well, and I did the same thing, long, long ago. And I said, I'm only interested in someone who's willing to put all the effort into creating what I call a world class relationship. And if that's not you, that's okay.
Right. And
You
then they
know,
have to ABB. If they say that's what I want, then they have to prove that,
that's
and to
right.
me, that beginning dating time, that first year is really about proving that. It's not like they're on trial or anything, but I'm watching the behaviors and saying, check, oh no, that's a red flag, check or no, and then I'm like allowing myself to give of myself more as the green lights go, not the red flags go. Right? That was
Right.
kind of how
Yeah.
my MO was in the dating scene. So this has been a wonderful conversation about toxic love, which, as you said earlier, is, you can't have any. Love is not toxic. True love is what you said, has those three elements of equality, mutuality, and reciprocity.
And as I said, I put the podcast URL in the comments there because I did a whole show on the three must haves. That's what it's called, the three must haves. So you might want to go over there and listen to that. So I develop all three of those points. And that can help you understand deeply what it is that must be there for a relationship to be healthy between two adults.
And that is saveyourSanityPodcast.com, where you can have, 24/7 access to Roberta. And I love that you do amazing content and allow us to deepen our connection to ourselves and build that fortitude to be able to have the relationships that really can withstand the test of time and fulfill us. And we're both dedicated to that, and that's why we do the show,
That's
transforming
right.
transforming relationships live. And that's why I developed also the feminine power cards. So it's for women, reminders to look inside and figure out what you want and be able to stand from that place as well. So that's at femininepowercards.com. And it's been a pleasure. with you.
Always a pleasure. So glad so many of you joined us. Be sure to put in your notes if you have any questions or suggestions for topics for us, because we'd love to meet your requirements and what's on your mind. So put it in the chat or in the comment thread under this, because we do check back.
Yes. Thank you, Adela. Thank you, Bernadette. We will be back in 2 weeks for you at the same time, 10:30, 10:40 Pacific on our Tuesdays into every other week. Bye for now, everyone.
Bye bye. Make it a great day.